Appropriation 2010-11 Estimates Bill, adjourned debate on second reading and amendment proposed thereto.
Chris Oakenfold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2010. After listening to the wonderful speeches introducing the budget by Mr. English, followed by the supporting speech by Mr. Key, which explained the many exciting changes outlined in the Budget 2010, I find myself posing the following question. How good is it for New Zealand to have a national-led government? Answer, it's fantastic. How good is it for us to have such a superb Prime Minister as Mr. Key and an intelligent, far-sighted Finance Minister in Mr. English? Answer, it's leadership this country of ours has been crying out for 9 long years. Mr. Speaker, I'm so pleased to be standing before you today and speaking about the budget because I believe this budget is key, and I mean key, in improving the lives of all New Zealanders. Let's look in plain English at what the changes will deliver to those who are working hard in this country. First and foremost, the budget tax package helps tilt the economy in favour of productive investment, savings and exports, and away from consumption, borrowing and unsustainable government spending. And we all know what that's about. That is essential to create jobs. The forecast, Mr. Speaker, is 170,000 new jobs over 4 years. I will say it again, Mr. Bennett, 170,000 new jobs over 4 years. The higher income, one more time, 170,000 jobs over 4 years. The higher incomes and the opportunities for Kiwi families to get ahead in New Zealand. The tax changes, Mr. Speaker, are sweeping. 73% of income earners will now pay a tops tax rate of 17.5%. Let me repeat that. 73% of income earners will now pay a top tax rate of 17.5%. This is a statistic that makes a mockery of the outlandish and unreasonable statements of the opposition that this budget is to help the rich. It's clearly not. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this is one budget where we can say that it is done for the majority of people in the country. It is done for the majority of people in the country. Who will be paying the cost of the budget 2010, Mr. Speaker? Who pays for these changes? Most of the extra costs will be borne by property owners, large foreign companies with interests in New Zealand, and people who use trusts to previously reduce their taxable income and to gain access to working for families. Indeed, we've aligned the tops tax rate with the trust tax rate to ensure the highest paid New Zealanders cannot structure their affairs to avoid paying the higher rates. This budget, Mr. Speaker, is about helping hard-working New Zealanders and their families to get ahead. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to set the economy on the right track, to reward hard-working New Zealanders, to lift economic growth and to aid us back into surpluses earlier than was expected. Mr. Speaker, isn't it great for New Zealanders that Labor isn't in charge? If we were, and I don't say that nastily towards the individual members, but if they were, we would be languishing in deficits for decades as they embark on their fundamentally flawed philosophies of borrow and hope. It would have been a tragedy if they had continued on during that period of recession. Well, there you are, quite right. Mr. Speaker, we want New Zealanders to stay in New Zealand. We want New Zealanders to get ahead through living here and through working hard and getting the rewards they deserve. We want Kiwi families to have financial security and higher take-home incomes. This budget, Mr. Speaker, provides that opportunity. The tax changes will improve the lot of every single person. Coupled with a GST increase, we are encouraging savings and investment over consumption. And for those New Zealanders who would be most affected by the GST changes, we are offering generous compensation in increased superannuation, for a start, increased working for families payments, increased student allowances, increased benefits, and of course, as my colleague Mr. Bennett says, most of all, increased tax cuts. The National-led government, Mr. Speaker, is about improving the lot of everyone, and in particular, the average worker. After Budget 2010, the average worker will be $15 a week better off, the average household $25 a week better off. This is significant. But Budget 2010, Mr. Speaker, is about much more than tax. It's about investing in the future. We're investing $321 million over 4 years into new science, research and technology initiatives. We're investing an extra $2.1 billion in health priorities, including an extra $1.4 billion to DHBs. Did we hear today from the Minister of Health? What did he say? Did he tell us that there is now a greater level of GDP being spent in the country on health than ever before? Ever before. I think that deserves some applause to that minister. Because, goodness me, if any portfolio has really been dynamically seized and dealt to, it's certainly health. I was privileged, Mr. Speaker, to travel with the Minister of Health down through the coast last 2 weeks ago, and we visited health facilities in Westport and in Greymouth and met with the PHO and other organisations. And it's great to be with such a stimulating minister who takes his responsibilities so seriously. Well, he does wear wonderful ties and shirts. Yes, he really does. But we're investing an extra $1.4 billion into DHPs. An extra $1.4 billion will be injected into better schooling and early childhood education. Savings across the tertiary sector allow for the purchase of 1,735 additional full-time places at universities and 3,173 extra full-time places at polytechs and institutes of technology than previously budgeted, responding to demand. The government, Mr. Speaker, is pouring money into expanding the Job Ops scheme, the Housing Innovation Fund, prisons, state highways and more. And Mr. Speaker, this is a caring, responsible, sensible, visionary government. New Zealanders voted at the last election because they believed that we had ideas which would advance the nation. Budget 2010 was produced on one of those days that the public will remember, because they could see many of our ideas and values coming together. And we can see that what we're delivering is a better New Zealand for everyone. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, one of the most heartening aspects of the budget is that it goes a long way towards reasserting the opportunity for New Zealanders to make their own way, to determine their own futures, independent of where they might have been born, what their training might have been earlier in life, what their life experience has been. It gives an opportunity. It's an egalitarian budget, and that we are an egalitarian country. We lost that for 9 long years, and now with National we're getting it back. And that includes a better New Zealand for the wonderful people of the West Coast Tasman regions, a resilient group of people, and those who will seize these opportunities with 2 hands. And I'm very, very proud to be serving them as their MP. And that, Mr. Speaker, is why I'm also proud to be a member of Parliament in the National-led government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.